You have a new book that's coming out in November, as I was saying earlier. The book is called Gaza in Crisis, Reflections on Israel's War Against the Palestinians. You have been critical of the boycott, divestment, and sanctions campaign that's targeting Israel. You don't think that is a good campaign. You don't think it's a good strategic campaign. It's only going to hurt the Palestinians. Being that your book is called Gaza in Crisis, it would be a mistake for me to let you go and not get your comments about the Gaza flotillas. How do you feel about that tactic? How do you feel about that strategy? Is that a better strategy than boycott, divestment, and sanctions? And what's wrong with the other strategy?
Well, what you've repeated is an illustration of a real pathology in current American culture. It relies very heavily on Internet gossip. What you repeated is Internet gossip.
Okay.
But it's not the case. In fact, I was involved in BDS before the movement even crystallized.
Right.
And I've always been in favor of it. What I've criticized is particular choices in BDS which were harmful to the Palestinians. There are others that are fine. In fact, most of them, I think, are very well-designed. I've been supporting them for years and have been among the initial supporters. But they have to, it's like any other tactic. It's not just a blunt hammer. You have to ask, in each case, is it going to help or harm the victims? But there is an Internet gossip culture which produces what you repeated. I'm not criticizing you. That's all over the place.
Right.
It just doesn't happen to be true. And you can easily find that it's not true, and it's discussed in the book. So, yeah, BDS is a very good tactic if it's properly implemented, as it often has been.
Is it being improperly implemented on certain levels right now?
Sure.
Okay.
Properly, you say?
Improperly.
Improperly. Yeah, I think there are cases of improper implementation. For example, implementation which is so hypocritical that it's just a weapon in the hands of the hardliners. So, for example, take the call for, say, boycotting Tel Aviv University.
Okay.
Because they never condemned the occupation. I mean, did Harvard University ever condemn the Vietnam War or the Iraq War or anything?
Right.
Do we boycott Harvard? I mean, is Harvard less involved in U.S. atrocities than Tel Aviv is in Israeli crimes? I mean, it's a joke to even ask the question. Quite apart from the fact that Israeli crimes are traced back to U.S. support. So if you want to boycott somebody, boycott the U.S.
Right.
Now, these things are so hypocritical
that,
you just have to hope that hardliners won't seize on it, as they often do, and use it to discredit the whole support for the Palestinians. And that's happened. I could give you concrete cases where that's happened. So, yes, we have to avoid things that are improper in themselves and utterly hypocritical, and simply hand weapons to the adversary. You don't want to do that. I mean, look, questions like this arise in all activist movements.
Right.
Let's go back to Vietnam. The weathermen believed that they were helping the Vietnamese by, smashing bank windows. The Vietnamese didn't agree with that. They were strongly opposed to those tactics. What they wanted was, and they said so, was, they were impressed by a silent demonstration of women at gravesides. And they were very much unimpressed by kids going down the street smashing bank windows, because they could figure out what the consequences would be. Well, I don't impugn the motives of the weathermen. I thought then and think now that the tactics were crazy in a lot of ways, as well as being wrong. But those are the questions you have to think about when you pick up when you design tactics. At least if you care about the victims. Now, if you just care about feeling good, okay, then do what you like. But if you care about the victims, you have to ask these questions.
Yeah, and I think that feeling good aspect of it, too, can come into what you were saying, like a non-targeted, the problems that could come up with boycott and divestment and sanctions, because you do feel good because you're a consumer. You can, I'm not going to buy that thing, or I'm going to buy a tote bag, a green tote bag, so I can save the world. Yeah. So I think that there is something that you get rewarded. But how do you feel about the Gaza flotilla tactics?
Flotilla is a terrific tactic. I've always been for it. In fact supported it all along, give fundraisers, and so on. I think it's been very effective.
Yeah, I think so too. And the only thing that I was a little bit concerned about was doing it over and over again and how the media would ignore it. But that's not a problem of the tactics of the activists. That's a reaction by the media.
Yeah, there you always have to. Can't deny that the world exists. Okay, we have to ask how things are going to be portrayed. That may not be and should not be a decisive criterion, but it's a consideration. You can ask questions about whether a particular tactic has been overused. Okay, that's a sensible question.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I don't think the flotilla tactic has been overused. I think it's a good one and should continue. But those are debatable questions. Tactical questions are always very uncertain.
Did you hear that the ship that they're putting together here in the United States is going to be called the Audacity of Hope?
Yes, I heard that, and I think that's great.
I couldn't decide. I couldn't decide if it was great or not. Why do you think it's great?
Because it's picking up. The significance of the title is not going to be missed.
Right.
It's pointed at Obama, as it should be, and I think it should open the way to discussion of the cynicism and in my view, fraudulence of the way the negotiations, so-called, are being carried out under the Obama administration. First of all, the whole framework of the negotiations is wrong, and that should be brought out. It's if there were to be serious, the way it's being presented is the United States is an honest broker trying desperately to bring two recalcitrant opponents to agree. That's not what's happening. If there were serious negotiations, they would be run by somebody from Mars, maybe, and it would be the United States and Israel on one side and the world on the other side.
Yeah.
But the United States and Israel, and that includes the U.S., crucially, have been defying world opinion on this for 35 years, and still are. Obama strongly.
Yeah, and I've seen you online where you talk about what could be done in order to end the violence between Israel and Palestine. You talk about how a lot of people might think that there are only two choices, one state or two state, but you said there's actually a third choice, and it's the choice that is actually being implemented right now.
Exactly.
A lot of people just see madness, but you point out how there is another way, and it's the method of the current madness that's going on. And I wish I could talk to you about it for another, like I said, I think we touched 3 pages of my notes, and I got 35 pages. I swear I could talk to you for like 3 hours, Noam. But one last question for you. We've been speaking with Noam Chomsky, philosopher, cognitive scientist, political activist, professor emeritus of linguistics at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. He's got a new book coming out in November, co-authored with past This Is Hell guest Ilan Pappe. The book is entitled Gaza in Crisis, Reflections on Israel's War Against the Palestinians. It's going to be published by Penguin Books. If you click on the word Penguin at our front page of our website, it takes you directly to the publisher's webpage where you can pre-order the book. One last question for you, Noam, and as always, it's our question from hell. It's a question we hate to ask, you might hate to answer. I think you're going to like answering this, and I'm going to hate asking this question. You were mentioning earlier how, the way in which the United States government our foreign policy seems to approach the world is we think that we know what's best for everybody, and you better put in a government that is friendly to us, because that is our foreign policy. Our foreign policy is to make sure that everybody does exactly what we tell them to do, because we know what's best. Now, I am sure that there are plenty of people out there who believe that we really do know what's best for the world, and if you were just like us, all of your problems would be solved. That seems to be the framework of almost all of the media coverage that I ever see. Yet, at the same time, these same people, I've seen Tea Party activists interviewed on TV where they're against the government. They don't trust anything about the government, but they are 100% behind a military effort like the war in Iraq. What explains this disconnection between when it comes to what the government is allowed to do, especially with people from the far right? How does this disconnect happen? We don't trust the government whatsoever, but we should be telling the rest of the world what to do.
Why do people cheer for the hometown football team? There's a pretty natural tendency to think, look, people take a look around them. They say, look, we're good people. We're decent people. We want the right things in the world. The bad things are happening everywhere. It must be because people aren't doing what we tell them to do. I mean, it's a natural feeling, and it's very strongly supported by the educational system, by the media system, by the information system, which essentially is driving that into your heads every day since you're a child. So sure, it's natural to believe it. I mean, it's not just the United States. You take a look at British imperial history, or French, or German, or Japanese, or pick it. It's the same. It's natural to assume that we're good people, we're doing the right thing for others, they should do what we say. And it's driven into your heads throughout your life by incessant propaganda on the part of the concentrated power systems who are executing these policies. So sure, people tend to believe it. And it's the task of honest analysts, people who think for themselves, people who are called dissidents. It's their task to try to unravel this, get people to look into the mirror, try to understand what's going on in the world, why people have the feelings they do, what we're actually doing to people. Take a very simple question. It's just come up in the last couple of weeks. I happened to be in China a couple of weeks ago. In China, they're pretty upset. You read it in the press, and people talk about it in the streets. They're upset about the fact that the U.S. is carrying out naval maneuvers in the waters right near China, like the Yellow Sea, and in particular was planning to send a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, modern aircraft carrier, with missile capacity to attack Beijing with nuclear missiles. They were upset about that. Now, that was reported in the U.S., but in a different way. It was reported as if the Chinese were making inappropriate, taking aggressive stands by blocking freedom of the sea, by preventing our access to freedom of the sea. Well, just reverse it. Suppose that China was carrying out naval maneuvers in the Caribbean and was sending a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier with missiles that could attack Washington. Would we say, yeah, that's fine, freedom of the seas? Well, it'd be a nuclear war.
Yeah.
But when we do it to them, well, look, it's just we're in the right. Why shouldn't we control all the waters in the world, including China's waters? And if they disagree, well, there's something wrong with them. Okay, it doesn't take an Einstein to penetrate through this and see there's something wrong with this picture. But you can't find one word about it in the media or the discussion.
That's because we're the good guys.
We're the good guys.
Exactly.
It's about at the level of cheering for your high school football team.
Yeah. Well, Noam, I really appreciate you coming back on the show. I'm going to send you an email. I truly appreciate all of your support for our show over the years. It's great to have you back on. Always an insightful, amazing conversation. I'm sure I'm going to go home and listen to it about 3 more times. Thank you very much, Noam, for being back on the show. And it's always great to hear your laugh.
Okay.
All right.
Good
Take care.
talk to you. Yeah,
see you.
bye.
Bye. This is Hell. Every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. We're going till about 2 minutes from now.